Both Lawra Shaw and Jenna Gerken started, about a year ago for both of you. And they were introduced to EXP through Julie Gerken, which we've had on Atomic Team. Jenna Gerken, the last names are the same, you might notice, is Julie's daughter. And they work in the mountain community where I'm at outside of Yosemite. So Lawra, why don't you we'll start with you, give a little bit of your background, and then Jenna, same for you.
Okay. So we're not from this area, but we moved up here from Bakersfield. It's been about 11, 10 years-ish now. And so before this, so my background is I originally went to school. Oh my gosh, it's been 20 years, 22 years since I graduated, but I got my degree in construction management. So I have always been in home building or commercial construction. And then about 10 years ago, I took a hiatus when we had our kids and decided to get back into the business just because I had done it actually in college and had done quite well and wanted something that was flexible with my kids. And then the reason we moved up here was my husband purchased an insurance agency. So that is a very big component of our market in particular, just because of the cost of insurance. So kind of leveraging that. And I've always, I know about construction. I also started to get into flipping some homes. And so it just kind of made sense to get back into the business. And I really have thought about it ever since I left it 22 years ago. And when we got back into flipping it, it just made sense that this was the right time. And originally I was just going to do it for my own deals, maybe anything that came organically, but then I just decided to go for it. So far, so good.
Yeah, definitely. We'll come back to that because it's definitely so far so good. Jenna, let's go ahead and hear your background.
Good morning, everyone. I was born and raised in the mountains here. So I left at 18. I went to college. I stayed in the Midwest for about 10 to 12 years. And then I actually originally got my real estate license in Texas in 2015. Didn't know anybody there, just went for it. Because real estate's in my family, third generation realtor. And I ended up working with a lot of investors in the Dallas area. So I have some background working with investors. I decided I wanted to move home and be close to family. We're a very close-knit family, so I knew I wanted to raise my kids here with their grandparents and cousins and all of that. So I moved home in 2020, and then I worked in the mortgage industry for 2 or 3 years, and then decided it was time to get my license. I've always loved real estate, so it just felt like it was pulling me back in, and that was, what I needed to do. Also, my mom and I started a staging company. So we do that on all of her listings, let's be honest. So that's keeping us busy as well. So yeah, I have a 3-year-old son and he's my why.
Aw.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. Well, Lawra, so this last year is your first year and do I have it right? 17 deals you closed in your first year?
Yes. From, I guess, April 1st was my first day.
So not even a year.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. What have you been doing?
So I had the privilege or the opportunity. I participated in the fast track program. Or was it the 6-week thing? And very early on, they discussed, basically capitalizing on what was free, the low hanging fruit, I guess you could say, your sphere of influence. I have a tendency to do things a little bit differently. I had no desire to do that. I wanted it to come organically. I used a phrase of I didn't want to pimp out my friends and family. So, and I had the option, which I understand not everybody does. And so I'm pretty good with, we'll say, cold calling, just being able to convert a complete stranger to somebody who trusts me quite quickly. So I decided to go the route and I started purchasing Zillow leads. And if I was going to invest in it, I was obsessively attached to my phone and I did not miss a single call. I remember even during like church, I ran out because I saw the 206, which is the Zillow lead number, come on. And so my thing was, it was just, hi, my name is Lawra Shaw. I'm a realtor and I would say whatever city it is, regarding if it was a city, if it was Oakhurst, I'm from Oakhurst. If it was Mariposa, I'm in Mariposa. So whatever property they were calling on, that's where I currently lived. And I just said, how may I help you? And they would usually ask a question and then I would just give them additional information. So I made it my, I don't know if you want to call it a pet peeve, but I have become very good friends with like the county inspectors and knowing every single thing about, I know a lot about building anyway. But up here, we have a lot of investors. And so knowing the ins and outs of the short-term rental market and being able to say, okay, they're calling, they're looking at investment. I already know what kind of information they would give me. I would provide additional information to lead the conversation forward. And one thing I would also do is I would say, hey, it's nice to have a face to a name. I'm going to confirm this is this your right cell phone number that Zillow has provided? I'm going to send you a picture. I would send my business card and I would also send a picture of my family so that they automatically had my number. And there was something something tangible, a little more personal. And then again, based on what they would tell me, it gave me enough information to then, even if the conversation was short, I had a reason to follow up. It was, oh, you're interested in investments in Mariposa. I'm going to send you some information specific to this county on what's required with regards to, short-term rentals. And then if I knew what they were looking at, because for the leads, it was on one property typically, then I would start sending them some other things. And so it just became a very quick organic relationship. It wasn't, I know Zillow even teaches, and again, I tend to go across against the norm, is Zillow was like, show, the first, when you pick up on that phone call, the first thing you want to ask them to do is, do you want to go see the property? That has not been my approach. It felt a little salesy, which is not my style. And it wasn't effective. It wouldn't have been effective on me. So I chose not to do it to other people. And I chose to go the information route. It became very clear to someone who was speaking to me. Plus once with my husband who owns the main insurance company in Mariposa. So I know quite a bit about that as well. So being able to educate them instantly made me their go-to person for that area. And because I wasn't pushy, that has worked very well for me. Maybe for others, the close was their method. So now I'm starting to get more organic leads and referrals, but that wasn't what I specifically chose to do because I don't know a soul from here. I mean, yes, my husband does, but he's not. I mean, most folks, when they're looking for insurance, the realtor has already been established. So my husband has not referred me really anybody. But I do leverage him when it comes to insurance, because again, that is a huge component up here. But that's really all I've chosen to do. And then I also decided, because I'll be honest, I became a little bit disillusioned with Zillow on how they've done some things. And so I decided to diversify and started also purchasing realtor.com leads. And they do it a little bit differently. So I started that just about 3 weeks ago. So I can do kind of a 6 months comparison. Eventually, maybe I won't do the leads whatsoever, but for now I will. I'm starting now to get listings. Of those 17 I did, only one of them was a listing. And that was because someone was purchasing up in Mariposa and therefore had to sell their house. But this year, right now, I'm working on 4 if you include my own personal flip. And then the one thing similar with Jenna, and this was something I was always big on when I did real estate, even at 19, I partnered with a designer when I was 19 and I staged every home. I always say, if you're not staging a vacant home, and you find a new realtor. So I have now accumulated a lot of furniture very quickly. But I also feel very passionate about that because for me, at least it's a value add and not everyone's going to agree with me, but technology, I feel, has removed some of the innate value that the realtor as a profession had when I did it, 22 years ago. And that if you wanted to find a house, you didn't have realtor.com, Zillow.com, smartphones. You had to go find the realtor, and then they would introduce you to the homes. Well, now the homes come first. So that's why I chose to go the Zillow route, because I said I need to tie myself to the homes. And that was the best way to do it. But for the staging thing, I think is huge. And again, it's a value add that to me has replaced what technology has in some ways made obsolete. So kind of a multifaceted approach, and so far so good.
That's awesome. Now, Jenna, I know you have done some Zillow, but you obviously are born and raised in the town where you're doing your real estate. So I would imagine maybe you have a little bit different approach as far as where you're looking or seeking out leads.
Yeah. So, being born and raised here, I do know we live in a really small community. So I know majority of people in Mariposa, but something about, my mom and I and Lawra as well, we are willing to work within like a 2-hour radius of where we reside. I know Lawra has sold multiple homes in Groveland, which is probably at least 2 hours from her. We were just showing homes in Groveland a couple weekends ago. It's an hour and a half from me. So we don't keep our circle of where we're willing to work small, but that's probably just a unique situation, maybe because Mariposa is such a small community that we kind of have to broaden where we're willing to work if we want to do more production. So sphere of influence for sure. You get referrals from people that your friends you were, born and raised with. But we also do Zillow as well. And then we've gotten referrals from Mariposa has a lot of investors, second homes, Airbnb type properties. So we have a lot of investors who've referred friends to us. I think something that on the Zillow leads, something that I've done to turn majority of those leads into clients and who have also purchased homes from us. So I got my license in March and I sold my first house in May. So coming up on a year, but something that I've done on those Zillow calls is to there's, hundreds of agents in the area. Something that I've done on the calls is to assure them that I am knowledgeable in this area. I do know this area very well. And when they have confidence that the ins and outs of the area that they're looking in, they're going to text you about future houses they want to see. They're going to come back to you as their resource because you made them feel confident that you knew the area better than anyone else they've spoken to. So as the same as Lawra, I don't try to immediately, oh, do you want to go see this home? Well, I try to give them information, try to find out exactly what they're looking for, because maybe this isn't the correct home for them. Maybe I know something on the market that's actually better for them. So then, I just try to be a resource of information. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to come back to that. I'm going to have Dawn ask a question, but I do want to circle back on how you stay in front of these because, right, it's Atomic Teams. We got to talk about systems. But Dawn, you have a question?
I do. Yeah. And actually it'd be nice if both Lawra and Jenna answered it. How are you handling the buyer broker agreement with the Zillow or Realtor.com leads? Are you doing like when I was at a Jeremy Larson event a few weeks ago, and they were setting up the agreement for a tour initially, and then they would go into a longer term agreement. But how do you handle that? Maybe you go into a full buyer broker because you're not just rushing out and showing them the property. But anyway, I'm curious how you approach that.
So for me, again, and I take it as how would I feel with somebody who I've never met in person, trying to get me to sign a formal document tethering me to this individual I've never met. And so I'm very honest and I say, listen, I am not a fan. However, to protect, I like my job. So to protect my license, this is something that needs to be signed. If it makes you feel comfortable, I'll do it just for the day and I'll write the addresses in of these houses. I said, but if at any time, you decide, hey, I'm not a Lawra fan, or vice versa, because it's, it could work both ways, we part ways, not a big deal. And usually I'm just very honest about it because I say, you know what, it is a little yucky. I'm not a fan of, when I haven't met you in person, having you sign this. If it were up to me, I wouldn't. And usually if I'm just honest like that, they just say, okay, I understand, you got to do it. And I've never had somebody really push back because I explain exactly what it is. And I use the EXPs from the 3-page one from SkySlope versus the car 13-14 page one. And I've never had someone say, just put today's, ad or just the houses we're going to see today. Because by then I've usually talked to them somewhat significantly. And so if they're going to, and a lot of times similar to what Jenna said, I'd say 50%, maybe more, are investors who don't live locally. Mm-hmm. So if they're going to make on average, if they're coming from the Bay Area, 2.5 to 3.5 hour drive one way to see a house, that piece of paper isn't going to really be it's not going to push them off. But I just explain, and yeah, I'm very upfront and honest about how I feel about it. And so far it's worked. I guess if somebody did push back, it's really just, it's to protect, because I like my job. And that's been, I'm not formal about it because I don't want to be formal about it, because that's what would work on me. So that's how I treat others. And so far, so good. And I say, I can either send it to you, beforehand, and you can do it on your, little scribble on your phone, or I can bring a hard copy and we can just do it right when we meet. And I give them the option, and I don't make it a big deal, and I don't make it this formal legal contractual document that you are tethered to me indefinitely. If you don't like me, and I jokingly say, and I might not like you. So it's worked.
And that sounds great. And what time period do you normally put in the agreement then?
3 months.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually do the similar thing to Lawra. I kind of explained to them that, back in the day, we didn't have to do that. We could just go and show. It was no problem. But then I kind of explained there was, a lawsuit, and now things have changed. Unfortunately, we do have to sign these to open doors. But by then, like Lawra said, we have had multiple conversations with these people. So it's not like they've already had their trust and confidence built with us. So I think that usually by that time they're like, oh, no problem, and they'll sign it. I also do the same as Lawra, where I let them know, like, hey, if we view this house and you decide this isn't the house for you and you don't want to work with me, I'm not your favorite agent, that's no problem. I'm happy to, part ways. You're welcome to go work with whoever you prefer. By no means are you stuck with me for 3 months. Like, I that's just not how I work. I'm not going to force someone to work with me. Like, if you don't see my value, then, you do not have to work with me. But I mean, by then, like, I've proven my value. I've shown that I know this area better than majority of the people. I've shown that I know my market. I've proven to you that I think this property and this property are probably better for what you're looking for. So I've never had anyone not want to work with me. So knock on wood. I'm not trying to brag, but I do try to build that relationship in order to, have their confidence and have them want to work with me and see my value that I bring to the table.
Awesome.
Nice. Thank you.
Well, I have a question, and then we'll open up and have a little bit more open dialogue with everyone, or that's what I would like to see. You guys are saying that you're meeting the people. Obviously, the first showing doesn't always translate to an offer. So what are you doing to stay in front of them? How many of us have a CRM that we don't actually utilize the way that we could? Anybody? Or has that just been me? Okay. I was kind of curious if you guys are like rock stars and you're like totally using Bold Trail or loftier clothes, or what are you doing?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because up to this point, I was able to do it more or less, pen or paper. There wasn't a huge quantity, and a lot of them converted quite quickly. Or it was easy to say, okay, this one is going to be a nurture at best. But a lot of them, especially in the last, I'd say 2 or 3 months, are they're going to be more long-term before they convert. So I actually went into the EXP world and asked, like literally 2 or 3 days ago, I said, can you send me some like crash course on Bold Trail? I'm like, because I think I finally gotten to the point where my brain and pen and paper are no longer going to be sufficient to keep this organized. So I actually started watching the collection of videos from there. So to be honest, what am I doing? Absolutely nothing yet. But I am now very much aware that I'm probably leaving some money literally on the table by not doing it. But again, I want to do it in my own way. Because I remember we bought a house when we lived in Bakersfield 15 years ago-ish, maybe not that long, 13, 14 years ago. And I'll be honest, I still get weekly emails from her, even though I've requested a gazillion times, please unsubscribe, or, and it just was like, it's a lot. And it was very impersonal. So, I mean, I even went old school because again, I tend to do things different. And I literally bought some pen and paper stationery and I hand wrote notes. And it wasn't even like, will you refer me? It was more just, I knew one of my clients was pregnant. So, I'd send her a little gift card. I said, how's the baby? If you need anything, let me know. But nothing about real estate or referrals. It was just a kind of a personalized touch that I probably thought that I wanted everything to be individualistic. But I do know that I have to somewhat systemize things because as scale. So to answer your question, I need to do it. I'm not doing it, and I should probably learn.
Well, the first step is self-awareness. So that's great. Congratulations to you on that. Looking at the group that we have, I mean, I see some names of people that have been in our industry for a really long time and have had some success. Is anyone on here willing to share some tips for Jenna and Lawra, being that they're newer? What else could they be doing to grow their business? Like Doug, I know you've been at this a really long time and have had a lot of success. Do you have any advice for them?
Hi, thanks for having me. Based on what I heard, everything that they're doing sounds to be spot on. I'm kind of similar to what Laura's doing along with Jenna, as long as following up on leads. I'm very conscientious on my emails, my text messages, phone calls, sign calls, and tend to convert. And I'm a lot like Lawra, where I'm pretty straightforward and honest. And, I don't really like to try to jam anybody into a buyer-broker agreement. Just try to ease them into it. And got a great TC that helps me with my paperwork. That's another thing that's been very instrumental. But I've got a database that Donna's encouraged me to build on. And I've been working off my database over the last couple of years, which has been very instrumental. A lot of times I'll go through my phone and be looking up a business or a client and happen to notice one of my past clients. I just happened to call one just recently and say, hey, geez, and how you guys been? They said, great. I'm so glad that you called rather than receiving a postcard or an email or a text. It's your voice. You're live. That's amazing. We do want to talk to you about selling our property and buying a house. I said, well, do you have to sell the property before you buy a house? No. Well, why don't I come see you and let's go get a house? We did that first showing and got their property on the market and sold it. So you just got to be in the game is what I call it. And that's part of being a part of this group is rather than having other things to do or setting other appointments, be in the game, be a part of this group. I think it's incredible what Don and Tom have created here. So That's kind of sums it up a bit.
Courtney, I have a question about the 3-page buyer's agency agreement in California. I'm from Colorado, and they're sticklers, about using the whole 19-page buyer's agency agreement. What is this 3-page thing that EXP has, and is it legal in Colorado?
So you'd have to go to the Colorado broker room, or maybe Jackie's not on here. Say someone else from Colorado that might know. But if it's not legal, I don't think they'll put it in your library in SkySlope. So when you go into forms, where you're in SkySlope, if you pull anything from your forms, at the top left, you're going to see the library options. And that's where you can go in and see if you're just pulling from your Colorado forms, or if there's any Colorado EXP of Colorado forms in there. And that's where we have found it for California.
Okay, I'll follow up on that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Don, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah. Well, just in regards to keeping in touch, I think Lawra, I love your direct approach. The thing about a database is that you want to, you basically are a real estate resource to become the realtor of choice, right? And so what we typically will train folks for is to build 300 people that think of you that way, right? And the reason why I like 300 is because in a quarter, there are roughly 60 working days. I know some of you work considerably more than that, but if you're having a nice balanced life, and so then it comes down to 5 a day, right? And I would encourage you to just call your clients every quarter, at least the top 300, and the ones that you want to be a real estate resource and the realtor of choice. And they're really, 4 things that you can say in those calls. One is, how is the home, and is there anything you need? Right? That's the real estate resource call. Another call, which actually, Lawra, this would play to your strengths, is, do you consider real estate part of your retirement strategy? And if so, what does that look like? And then the third one is, are you living in your dream home? And most people are not. And if they don't want a dream home, they typically want a second home, which would play well for your guys' market, for sure. But anyway, find that out, get them to describe it to you, and then go find that home once a year and send them a link. Hey, Courtney, I was out looking at property today. I came by this home. Oh my gosh, it looked just like your dream home. Is that still your dream? Is there anything I can do to help? Right? So number 3 call is the dream home call. The 4th call is to invite them to an event. And my encouragement to you is, with you and your vendors, is to do some kind of quarterly event. We recommend 2 client appreciation, 2 educational. One of the educationals could be on Zoom for your out-of-area investors. But what's nice about having a quarterly event is that because you're calling them every quarter, then you can be just inviting them to the next event. Right? So it's not just chit chat. Anyway, so those are just some really, you don't even need a CRM to do that, although it's super handy because then you can keep notes unless you've got a photographic memory. You're going to end up having things slip through the cracks. So I certainly advocate for a CRM, but I more advocate for having personal contact on a quarterly basis.
So along those lines, I'm curious, and I know, again, we have some people that are not on camera, but can you give me a thumbs up, you guys, if you have 300 people in your database or more? And if you guys are able to put it in the chat, no? Okay. So how many of you have looked to see or know where to go to see how many contacts you have in your phone? Does anybody know how to find that? And have you done it? Okay, so when you go into your contacts on your phone, you're going to go to the very bottom and you see the little hashtag sign, or you literally scroll all the way down to the bottom, and that's going to tell you how many contacts you have in your phone. Is anybody willing to share their number? Francie, I see you trying to talk.
I have 1,576 contacts.
That's awesome. What about you, Francie?
980. I literally just cleaned out like all the duplicates and did all of that. So, I mean, I'm pretty clean, and yeah, it's not in my CRM. They all should be. So that's kind of something I'm working on, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Don's our numbers guy. What do you think? Statistically speaking, a percentage of your contacts could convert to an actual lead, or they might know someone that needs a realtor, if not themselves. And all you have to do is pick up the phone. I feel like that could be a good tactic for all of us, even those of us that have been in the industry for 20 years.
100%. 100%. And by the way, Lawra, in your case, with your husband owning an insurance agency, let's just say he has I don't know, do you have any idea how many clients that he has in his agency? How many homeowners that he serves?
Oh, a lot.
Over 1,000?
Yes, I'd say he insures the majority of Mariposa. And yeah, I honestly don't know, but it's a lot.
Okay. Well, if it is 1,000, then when he, because they have to renew the policy legally every year, right? When they do that, if they did it in a conversation, one of the questions that is great for an insurance agent to ask after they've done, like, I don't know what kind of agency, is it an independent or a franchise?
So so he's with Farmers, although at this point it's more in name because Farmers just doesn't have an appetite so a much greater percentage of his business is outside of Farmers at this point. So for all intents and purposes, he's more of a independent broker as opposed to, but it's still the way Farmers has it set up is he owns the agency. He owns that. It's different than like State Farm.
Okay, got it. Nice. Well, Farmers has a saying, they call it the Farmers Friendly Review, which is code for I'm going to call you to renew your policy and upgrade you into another policy, which, of course, great to do. Before they hang up the phone, though, when they're doing that renewal, just coach them to say, by the way, how are you liking your place? Are you settled in there a while? Now, mind you, he can't be giving you referrals from agents that have referred him that might also be serving that market. But for the ones that are unattached, if he has 1,000 clients, just for perspective, if people are only moving every 20 years, he has a client listing their home for sale every week. 1,000 divided by 20 is 50. So anyway, it would mean an extra half a dozen deals a year for you if he asked that question.
Awesome.
Well, okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I'm going to commingle that.
Yeah,
we've kind of said like this. I don't want to. I mean, we'll just say he's extremely busy. That we've kind of said, I'm not gonna. It's not that I don't want to leverage it or take advantage of it, but his focus is not getting me clients. His focus is the insurance side. And unfortunately, where we are, you're not really upselling him on anything. You're just telling him, hey, guess what? It just went up by 5,000. So I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. Well, when they do, it works. I've coached actually a Farmers agent in Colorado on that very script. But anyway, but I know you don't like mixing your personal life with your business. So, but this would be business to business. The problem in this case maybe is that it's your husband and it's too close to home. But anyway, it's a strategy that can work if you choose it.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions they want to get out there before we sign off today? No? Out of curiosity, does anyone want to chime in on how your market is right now? I've been hearing quite mixed reviews on it, depending on the areas. Kind of curious.
Well, maybe you can make me feel better because my goodness, I was thinking literally about a month ago, like, did I just have beginner's luck? Because holy crap, it's slow. And if I can find somebody who just has, a credit score above $500 and maybe has more than $10 to invest in purchasing a new home. It just seems the buyers the sellers are still living in 2021 land, and the buyers think it's 2008. The biggest issue I'm having actually where we live with investments is the math just isn't mathing, because the home prices have literally doubled since pre-COVID, but the nightly rental rates have not. So, and with a huge percentage of at least my leads, our investor perspective, it is extremely hard to, again, get the math to math. I even purchased the AirDNA. I purchased the full blown, so I can do a projection and kind of tweak it to provide for everybody, which is something I've also decided to do because it gives them a little more nuggets to stay with me. But again, I can't get a cap rate that is worth, if I'm being honest, I'm like, I wouldn't buy it. So I'm having a very hard time converting somebody because it would feel very disingenuous because I wouldn't do it myself. And again, I don't know if it's just, I haven't been around during the slow period of winter. And is this normal or is this abnormally slow?
Normal for our area. There's seasonality. Our Dawn was going to chime in, but for our area, January is typically our slowest month, and it's already picking up.
Yeah, I'm sure part of that is seasonal, and you can go back and look at the data in your market to look at how much that fluctuation occurs. But Lawra, you're such a no-nonsense kind of gal. If I were you, I would just pivot more to listings. You're strong enough that you won't have any problem persuading people to have confidence in you for that. And because right now we have record unaffordability. So we have like the lowest transfer rate since the early 90s. And we have the smallest percentage of people that can afford to buy. And as you pointed out, the numbers are very difficult to work for investors. And if you find a deal that's good enough for them to want to buy it, you probably will want to buy it yourself because you're an investor. So but the thing about listing is that it's often triggered by life events. That's why I was pitching you on the idea of putting your husband's team up to asking if they were settled in, but because 1 out of 20 or 1 out of 15 are going to sell this year. But, people are going to continue getting married. They're going to continue getting divorced. They're going to have babies. They're going to pass away. They're going to get job transfers. They're going to have economic events in their businesses, either positive or negative. And a lot of those things will trigger a sale of a property. So like when I got into real estate in the early 90s in Sacramento, we immediately went to, or not immediately, but very soon after, we went to war in the Persian Gulf. And the market just went off a cliff. And we had, for context, we had 18 to 24 months of inventory. People were not excited to buy at that time. Okay. So what did I do? I just looked at the market and said, okay, well, I'm going to get to the office at 6:30 and I'm going to start calling expireds. That's how Tom Daves and I met. We were out there banging on the expireds and competing. But anyway, so my point is there's always a market. Your responsibility is to find the market that suits you, your personality, your strengths, your wisdom, and so forth, and go for it. But right now, it's tough with buyers. And here's the thing: when you control the listings, the buyers come to you anyway for free. No payment to Zillow.
And can I add one thing on that regarding the listings that has really been working for me lately? Just a tactical thing that everybody can try. So when I pull my comparables for the listings, I'm now plugging that into ChatGPT. It's helping me write a script that I'm plugging into Canva on a template that I have made with a pricing strategy. And I'm giving all my sellers 3 options. I'm anchoring them very low with a very low option, a medium option, And then the highest option is like the absolute highest that I would be willing to list it for. And they're picking the middle one typically, and it's working out really well. And I'm having so many fewer sellers overpricing now than what, yes, I'll share that with you, Laura, than what they used to be doing. And I just have found it very helpful. And I'm also having them do pre-inspections, which is not common in our area, which is also made for a very smooth escrow. And the last one I closed ended up closing for 50,000 higher than list when we did it that way. And then we
quick question. When you do the tiers, do you just say low, medium, high, or do you associate it with days on the market? So, hey, if you want to be on the 30 days, we're at Mariposa's 85.
I do associate with days on market, and chat does it. Chat does it for me.
Yes. Do you have something that you specifically enter into Chat GPT that generates that for you?
I do. I enter my CMA into it, and I use Altos Research, which you can sign up for to get an overall market snapshot for your area. It's free. And I plug both of those in. And then I plug in a template from a previous listing and say, give me this information. And then I just copy it into the new one.
We do something sort of similar.
Seems like yay. Next week's Atomic, perhaps?
Yes, I'll roll something out on that.
We do something similar. We went to a listing appointment last week where we kind of explained to them, if you want to be at this price point, it's probably going to be on the market for X amount of days. If you want to be higher than that, you're probably looking at X amount of days. So we do something similar. And that helps them realize, oh, if I want to sell my house and move to Utah, in the next 60 days, I need to be, aggressive with my price instead of pricing higher and sitting on the market for 6 months.
Well, and I would add to that, though, that in a market, the market has largely been flat lately. I don't know about your specific market, whether it's appreciating or depreciating, but I can tell you that when I was selling in the 90s, when we had that kind of inventory, time was not our friend, and it would take them longer if they priced higher, but they did not get more money. In fact, quite the contrary. It would take longer, and then it put them at risk. And so, like, I would go into a listing and I would say, okay, well, we want to be at 369, perhaps to sell at 350. And they would say, well, let's try 399. And we would, of course, it didn't work. And so then they would say, okay, all right, Don, you're right. After 60 days, let's go to 369. Well, the problem is then we had to go to 359. And they would follow the market down. And so just be aware, if you're telling them the higher price is more time, it also exposes them to the risk of less money.
We definitely do explain that. But that is a great point.
Yeah, great.
All right. Well, we're out of time. So I appreciate everyone coming on. Since Tom has no audio today, I will tell you that we've got our inspirations. Now it's time to put in our perspirations. So let's go out and kill it. And we'll see everybody next week. Don't forget to check out or encourage others to watch the recording in our Facebook group. If you haven't joined it, it's the Atomic Habits Facebook group, and they keep bringing the heat with all sorts of good content in there. So don't miss out on that. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, Laura.
Tom. Bye, guys.